See, animals and architecture. I don't know if that one looks very stable. Or it's alive.
It's a walking rock.
This is what happens when reclaimed wood is overused.
Yeah, the whole city goes up in flames. Exactly.
I don't think I've ever seen sort of a long shingle like that. Have you been?
I don't think I have. It's unclear whether it's a shingle or whether it's a plank of wood.
It's kind of in between. I don't know that a horse would support a horse and a rider.
Yeah, I don't think so. Plausibility isn't the first thing that game designers seem to think about. But this is a more plausible world than Minecraft in a way. I mean, well, it's more realistic.
Oh, for sure. I mean, someone has spent a lot of time studying traditional architectural details and then adapted it too. There was like a column just a step back. They kind of almost look like a more lamppost from turn of the century. Right there on the left.
On the left.
Yeah. Castle architecture, which is, I can't tell which period because there's this sort of Edwardian aspect applied to it as well.
My knowledge of medieval architecture gets pretty murky. One thing you see in a lot of these procession, the character moves a kind of wide, long shot of structure, and then they approach a gate, and then they move into a vestibule, and then they move into a hall.
Look at the turret detail and articulation. It's almost like the tracery, the ornament that you see on windows. Fantastical, but beautiful. Is that laundry? I don't think that was laundry hanging. As opposed to the one now is much more medieval, functional.
There's a lot of defensive fortress architecture in contrast to the processional architecture that would have traditionally been used to elevate the status of the church.
That looks like a much more modern pillar, don't you think, Ben?
It's an Ionic order. It doesn't have the intricate detail of the other classical orders.
Oh, pretty steep grade.
Yeah. It's probably something you wouldn't have seen in a medieval building.
Yeah, not that wide. If you were to see that steeper grade, it might be under a castle, but it'd be like a little tunnel.
Yeah. This is weird because there's Renaissance detailing, like a kind of classical revival. It's also this kind of medieval catacomb. There's 1,000 years of history mashed up into this spaces.
The color is awesome. The detailing is not a medieval knight era. It's much later.
Several of these remind me of San Simeon, the gigantic fireplaces. Almost several of the spaces that we've been in have had hearths, fireplaces. You know, they kind of orient you when you're in the game, I suppose.
Yeah. Sort of gone with the wind a little bit, too.
This isn't just a decayed space. This looks like a space that's more maintained, I guess.
And I don't think you would actually... So it's a barrel vault, the whole room.
Yeah.
But then they've coffered.
Yeah.
Which one wouldn't have traditionally done that at all, because it's the idea of like a stone coffer but then a stone circular barrel arch.
They could have got the idea from DC Subway.
I love that.
Barrel vaults that have these coffers. I mean, game designers are just borrowing.
Well, I think the DC Metro had the advantage of having concrete.
Right. Right. Again, this is Citizen Kane. Again, they really use a lot of the stuff from there.
I don't know about you, Ben, but I do have this attachment to things being of a certain historical period and all making sense. And it doesn't need to. I mean, where's Elden Ring? It could be an alternate universe.
Yeah.
So there is no time.
There is no time. Yeah, that's what I learned as a set designer. It doesn't really, unless the story needs to be firmly grounded in a particular period, you can borrow freely to create dramatic effect.
Yes, and yet at the same time, all those little devices like feeling the grit or the rug really looking like the rug are the things that ground it and give the whole experience authenticity. So it's kind of interesting what needs to show up as more photoreal and then what doesn't need to. huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's a mashup of different castles and different architectural typologies.
Manor is a good word.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a castle, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like a merchant manor. Oh, back in the day in Europe, they used to pay taxes based on how many windows you had in your house.
Right. That person would have been highly taxed.
Highly taxed.
There's like a little chapel perched up on the top of it. The architecture also has this defensive quality. There were periods where they used that as a motif, but they didn't actually serve a defensive purpose. This building looks like it would be vulnerable to attack, although that's pretty steep.
Defensive architecture now, it's a get off of my lawn house. More decay.
Well, this looks like there's a lava flow running through the...
It's beautiful paving. I've never seen paving like that. Lava is molten rock, so if lava is touching rock, it's melting it, or it's cooling on it.
It's cooling on it. Was that some kind of mechanical device, like some kind of big turbine? Look at that. Yeah.
I mean, this is another historical thing, too, right? Like, it wouldn't be metal at that time. It'd be a stone wheel.
Nobody would be articulating or moving a bridge that's built in stone.
But, I mean, if you had a lava waterfall... Almost like somebody had a late night party. So, like, they left all the candles on the ground near the huddle puddle. And I like how it's more golden tone.
Yeah.
No decay, but they still have a weed problem.
But again, there's no people inhabiting these cities. You're alone. Somebody lurking around the corners, but for the most part, the whole culture of the place has been wiped out. Look at that detail on that.
It's almost like a huge colonnade, kind of basically an arch.
Cathedrals often have huge doors that were, scaled much larger than any person would have experienced at the time that they were built. It was, you were walking into the house of God. They were scaled to impress. That's historically accurate. I think that what they've done here is just exaggerated.
There's definitely some like Italian Renaissance detail, but then like some sort of English manner.
It's interesting to see that most of the games that we've seen thus far are set in a Western European world. But we haven't yet seen Thailand or Aztec universe.
Oh, wow. That's one of the ways they got our architectural articulation back in the day. They killed the dragon and then it just sort of froze.
Yeah.
That's like the interior of the Pantheon.
That's totally the Pantheon, which would have been a Roman pagan temple that appropriated by the Catholic Church.
Never seen anything like it.
Yeah, never seen anything like it.
I like how it's staggered. Oh, this looks like an 80s album cover.
Totally.
And I can't remember which one.
Well, a lot of video games look like Molly Hatchet, Southern rock band from that time. It's funny because that's a ruin, right? Like that's like either a Greek or a Roman, Assyrian ruin, right? A lot of architects in the Renaissance, that was all they had to learn from. People built in these classical periods, this kind of idealized path. And so there's a lot of documentation of ruins that was done during the Renaissance by architects who traveled to visit ruins as a way of gathering knowledge.
I know it's a mythic world, but it's very Romanesque architecture.
Definitely. Maybe the person who designed this went to UCLA.
Totally. I did my master's there in architecture.
Totally.
That's so funny.
I could have sworn that was Royce Hall or the library. Right there.
Yeah.
I love those buildings. I think UCLA's campus is beautiful, the Romanesque buildings.
So Middle Ages, huh? Because we're a knight, more or less.
It's fantasy, I used to try to peg fantasy to a particular period, I wasn't a big Game of Thrones fan, but I did watch some of it. And when I first started watching it, I kept telling myself that this is set in the Middle Ages, and it's like, it's not set in any time. It's fantasy.
I like this sort of under the sea feeling too. I'm getting.
It does sort of feel like you're in a undersea world a little bit, like you're inside of an aquarium. How many aquarium designs have you seen with classical ruins in them? It's a pretty common trope in
aquarium fish prefer ruins to swim through.
Totally. I want my goldfish living in the temple of Saturn. Well, what kind of architecture is this? This is like this kind of English Gothic. It's kind of the style of Westminster Abbey, and
you don't think it's French Gothic
in London? Well, the one in the lower right corner doesn't look like it to me.
It's the proportions of it are kind of funky. Ooh, elevator.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But you know what's interesting about the windows? You would never had clear glass. It would have always been colored. See, animals and architecture.
Yeah.
I like that.
Gargoyles.
And they're weird bird cages on this bridge. That's kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Right. I thought they were maybe for lanterns, but they're bird cages.
Something that happens in fantasy, whether it's sci-fi or historical, they always have bridges that have this incredibly exaggerated height, like this precipice that you'd fall 5,000 feet to your death. They're really emphasizing the height in this. Look where the camera is. It's super low. It's like very dramatic to give it a kind of Gothic kind of looming over you.
It's sort of neo-retro Gothic, if that's a thing. It's like a postmodern Gothic. No, that's what they did with all the Gothic cathedrals. They're incredibly high. The whole point of the Gothic arch was to create architecture that was taller. I feel like we're the Burger King guy.
he has kind of got that kind of beard, doesn't he?
That's beautiful. Look at the iron.
Yeah, I always love seeing architectural displays of armor in museums. They're fabulous. The technical design of them, the craftsmanship. Plates of metal could form and move around your body. Some of it's pretty sophisticated.
Big water wheel, elevator.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Those might be a little out of scale.
Everything's a little out of scale. Now, yeah, it's like he suddenly became 3 inches tall, and he's inside of the gears of a clock. That ginormous cog wheel is like something that you would see. Have you ever been to the Bethlehem Steelworks in Pennsylvania? You know, pumps and gears that are like 30 feet in diameter.
Is there a wreath on the door? Holiday decorating. It's like midsummer, apocalyptic midsummer.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's these kind of like these other emblems of life and spring in these flowers. And yet the village itself is sort of abandoned and scary. You expect to see death step into the scene and point his craggy finger towards eternity.
Totally. It's creepy. Uh-oh. Dead people. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's morbid. Hanging from crucifixes. Wow. That's a great image.
And like the, we just passed the sort of Egyptian, what do you call the Egyptian ones that are the simple spire?
Obelisks.
Okay, yeah.
I wonder if there's any historical precedent for that, an obelisk of fire.
That's pretty amazing.
I mean, some of it's more Gothic than Gothic, right? Like they're kind of like layering on more detail than
that. Wow.
That's fantastic. Fabulous.
And I like how there's the like omnipresent, super large tree of life kind of at the background of everything.
Yeah, I wonder what that's supposed to do. Does that have if that has any significance in the game? Crows circling. That's an ominous sign.
And you know what I like about this too? It feels like I would be cold.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure. Yeah, it's cinematic. It feels like there's more to it than the architecture. You feel the cold, wet, damp world. You feel the wind blowing. You hear the wind blowing.
It's sort of British romantic, neo-Gothic.
Yeah, people love ruins. See, here I feel like they kind of just duplicated the same arch over and over again. They didn't really spend as much time on resolving how it met the corners.
It's like a really big hotel that's got 1,000 rooms. Like it just starts to have no character at all. That's awesome. Ooh, look at that light fixture.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And the trees, the tree tapestries. I wonder how many designers there usually are on a game. And is there a primary production designer like a film?
Good question.
That's beautiful.
Probably depends on the budget.
Sort of a Byzantine gold roof moment.
Yeah. These environments were put together with a little kit bashing.
I like, was this a sculpture that was created of a dragon, or was the dragon attacking and got turned to stone?
I'm going to guess the latter.
It's like fantasy medieval plop art. Rather than be commissioned, it occurs during attack.
What? No, some wizard zapped him, froze him in mid-flight. I wonder when the first use of that idea of like the entire floor as elevator was used in movies or in games. It's something that comes up a lot.
I don't know if that one looks very stable.
No.
Uh-oh.
I think it's actually...
Oh, it isn't. Or it's alive.
It's alive.
Is it it's walking around rock architecture.
It's a walking rock.
This is a new problem when your buildings start walking away from you. That's cool. He sat down, so now we could climb up. And did you notice we changed outfits?
Yeah, he did change outfits.
Kind of looks like we just picked up a carpet and put it on.
Mm-hmm.
Can I point out something with this window?
Yes.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
You gotta have a lead vein. Like, it's not like they had a big overall piece that then they put 3 pieces in.
Yeah, it's sort of applied onto the glass.
Well, and it does look like that 80s modeled shower glass, no?
Totally. Yeah.
I think those parts of game design are so beautiful. Like I wouldn't have expected to see this massive moon right there, and it's like that moment where it captures a moment in time and a poetry, just as if I was, driving home and I saw the moon be extra large and near the horizon. Hyperbole, the crazy exaggeration of what was historically accurate, multiplied so many times that it was absolutely fantastical.
Yeah, it's not trying to be historically accurate. It's trying to kind of tap into something in the player's memory about what they've seen, the kind of mythology that they've built up in their minds around architectural history. Fantastical version of Gothic, a fantastical version of Renaissance, and kind of multiplying it, putting it on steroids.
For more Experts React, check out Gamology's Facebook and YouTube pages. For more of me, head to Preen Inc. at Instagram.
Ball_Noguez_studio.
See you next time.